Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're looking at, well, a pretty striking image out of Rome. That black smoke, rising from the Sistine Chapel,
Yeah.
happened this Wednesday, May 7th, 2025. And everyone was watching for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that black smoke, it tells us something very specific, doesn't it?
It does. No pope yet.
Exactly. The first vote is cast by those 133 cardinals. They're all sealed inside the Vatican,
Yeah.
trying to choose Pope Francis's successor.
Francis, of course, passed away just last month. He was 88.
Right. So this first ballot, it just didn't reach that necessary two-thirds majority. Hence the black smoke.
And for you following along, that black signal, it's the internationally recognized sign, isn't it? An inconclusive vote.
Mm-hmm.
Can you just picture it? St. Peter's Square packed.
Yeah.
Tens of thousands of people, apparently.
Yeah, reports said over 45,000. It's quite something.
Also staring at that one chimney. I mean, the sense of history, the anticipation, it must be incredible.
It really must. And that crowd size, especially for a first vote, it just underlines how much this matters globally. People are invested. There's this collective, maybe hope, maybe anxiety about who the next leader of the Catholic Church will be.
Okay, let's dig into the timing a bit. The reports say voting kicked off around, 5:45 p.m. local time?
That's right, about then.
And then a bit over 3 hours later, 9:05 p.m., boom, black smoke.
Yeah.
So what does that sort of 3-hour window tell us? Anything significant about that first try?
Well, it suggests they probably got down to business pretty efficiently, conducted the first round. But obviously no single candidate had that overwhelming support right out of the gate.
So not a deadlock necessarily, but just no immediate winner.
Exactly. They've started the process properly, but, consensus wasn't instant, which isn't terribly surprising, really.
No, and it makes you think about past conclaves, doesn't it? I remember reading that Benedict VI's election back in 2005 was super quick.
It was one of the fastest in about a century, less than 36 hours, I think.
Wow. And there was this quote from someone, Cinzia Caporali, who was actually there in 2005, saw the white smoke.
Oh, right.
She remembered people just shouting, "Fato, it's done!" That joy. And she was saying she hoped this time they'd pick someone who'd sort of continue Francis's path.
It just shows how different each conclave environment can be. That speed in 2005 versus, this starting point now.
Yeah. So this first unsuccessful vote, it doesn't automatically mean deep divisions or anything.
Not necessarily. It's more a reminder that this is, it's a complex process. It involves discernment, discussion, trying to build that consensus. And the Cardinals, they're under enormous pressure to choose well.
Speaking of pressure, the news flagged that homily from Cardinal Giovanni Battista Re, gave it just before the conclave started.
Yeah.
He apparently urged the other cardinals to, put aside personal considerations, really stress the maximum responsibility they have. That sounds like setting a very serious tone.
Oh, absolutely. It underscores the spiritual gravity of it all. He called on them to invoke the Holy Spirit, asking for guidance.
Right.
To choose a pope who's needed by the church, by humanity, especially now, at what he called a difficult and complex turning point.
That phrase really stands out. Difficult and complex turning point.
It does. And he also focused on love, didn't he?
Yeah.
As the only force that can really bring change. It gives you a little window into the kind of values they might be discussing when looking at candidates.
So there's this deep spiritual side, but the reports also mention the, the practical challenges. Finding someone to follow Pope Francis is apparently seen as a tough task.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that, do you think?
Well, Francis had a long papacy, 12 years, and he brought in quite a few reforms, shifted the emphasis in certain areas,
All right.
which, as the report suggests, has led to a college of cardinals that's pretty diverse.
Yeah.
Maybe even divided on some issues.
Diverse in what way? Geographically?
Yeah.
Theologically?
Both, probably. You have cardinals from all over the world, many appointed by Francis himself, but others from previous pontificates. They might not all know each other that well.
So forming that consensus could be trickier.
It could be. You likely have some who want to continue Francis's more progressive direction, and others who perhaps want to pull back or reverse some of those changes. Different visions for the Church's future.
And yet, despite those potential differences, the feeling seems to be they want this done relatively quickly, 2 or 3 days max.
Yeah, that seems to be the prevailing mood, according to reports.
Why the rush, though, if it's such a big decision?
Well, I think part of it is about image. A shorter conclave projects unity, decisiveness. If it drags on for a long time, it can start to look like there's serious infighting or uncertainty.
Okay, avoid the perception of division.
Exactly. A quicker result can signal stability, project confidence, both inside and outside the church.
Makes sense. So before they even went into the Sistine Chapel, they had these pre-conclave meetings, right? What was on the table there?
A whole range of pretty heavy topics, actually. Things like evangelization, how to spread the faith today, Vatican finances, which is always a complex area,
Always.
the ongoing crisis around clerical sexual abuse, how the church responds to war, and service to the poor and migrants themes, very central to Francis's papacy.
That's a massive agenda.
It really is. It covers so many of the big challenges the church faces globally, and those meetings would have been crucial for the cardinals to gauge each other's views, find common ground, or maybe identify where the sticking points are.
Now, interestingly, one topic that reports said wasn't formally on that pre-conclave agenda, the role of women in the church.
Right, that was noted.
Even though Pope Francis did, appoint women to some higher positions in the Vatican, though he held the line on women not being priests, still seems like a significant omission.
It does seem notable, yeah, because while Francis made some, let's say, administrative advancements, the bigger questions about women's full participation in leadership roles, those remain really significant points of debate, and for many, frustration.
Which brings us to something else happening outside the Vatican walls, the protests, particularly that pink smoke. Saw reports about that. Catholic women's groups, specifically Catholic Women's Ordination, setting off pink smoke on Gianicolo Hill.
Yes, a very deliberate act, a countersignal almost.
Using the conclave's own language, basically.
Exactly. Miriam Duignan from CWO explicitly said they were using smoke to try and communicate with the electors inside.
The all-male electors.
Yeah, all male electors, yes. Their point being that women, half the church, feel silenced and excluded from this incredibly important decision-making process. The pink smoke was meant to be a very visible, very symbolic way of saying, we're here, hear us.
It's quite a powerful image, isn't it? That ancient ritual of the smoke signal being kind of mirrored or challenged by this modern call for change.
It really is. Juxtaposes tradition and contemporary demands very starkly.
So where does that leave us now? The conclave carries on tomorrow, Thursday.
That's right. Today's black smoke just means round one didn't produce a pope. The process continues. They'll go back into the Sistine Chapel, cast more ballots.
And the world keeps watching that chimney.
Pretty much. Until we see white smoke.
So wrapping up this first look, that initial black smoke, it's more than just a procedural signal, isn't it? It hints, perhaps, at the complexities involved. Maybe differing views that need reconciling within that College of Cardinals.
I think so. It sets the stage. It tells us this might not be a straightforward decision, that finding a successor to Pope Francis involves navigating some real differences. It's a public marker that the discernment is ongoing.
And it makes you, the listener, really think about what's happening behind those closed doors, doesn't it? What priorities are being weighed? What kind of leader are they looking for? How will they bridge any gaps to reach that two-thirds majority?
Absolutely. Those are the questions hanging in the air now as everyone waits for the next signal, white or black.
Which leaves you with this thought. What does this initial lack of consensus suggest about the challenges the next pope will inherit? And, maybe more importantly, what kind of leader might actually be able to unite the various perspectives within the church today? Something to ponder as this historic process unfolds.